So you're new to this hobby and you do not know where to begin? Well, look no further. I got something for you. Hello and welcome, my dear scale modelers, to my small hobby YouTube channel. My name is Tomo, and today we're going to be taking a look at 7 1/72nd scale models for beginners. Armor Edition. Before we go on with this video, I would like to ask you a teeny tiny favor, and that is if you could like this video and probably even click that bell notification button down in the corner so you will know exactly when I upload video. I usually do it once a week, every Sunday. Also, you can follow me on Instagram. With that all out of the way, let's go into the video. Friends, there's a lot of model kits in this world, and picking and choosing the right model kit for you could be daunting, especially if you are just beginning in this hobby. There is lots of questions that newcomers in this hobby have, and one of which is, what model should I start to build? Well, in general, I would recommend planes and armor tanks because they usually have the lowest part count. As for the scale, well, 72nd scale would be the easiest to tackle, and then moving along to 48 and 35. So for this video, I decided to show you 7 more interesting tanks in 1/72nd scale that are very well suited for beginners because of their low part count and also their very teeny tiny size. But that doesn't mean that the more advanced model builders among you are supposed to stay away from these kits. No. These are perfect for testing new techniques if you choose to advance your skills along the way. The tanks that I've chosen for this video are the ones that we sold the most of, so I'm guessing that are more popular among armor guys. You can tell me down in the comments below. All of them are super simple to build and have low part count and very affordable price that goes anywhere from 10 to 16 euros. These models here, of course, are all 16 euros because, Slovenia. Like always, I will leave a timestamp of each individual review video in the comments below. So now let us jump into the boxes and see what's what. And we start off this review with the M1A2 Abrams main battle tank from Trumpeter. Length 144.91 millimeters, width 51.2 millimeters, and it has around 80 plus parts. It is a 1/76 scale model and it costs 16 euros here in Slovenia. Upon opening the box, you get 5 sprues that contain all the necessary parts to construct the model, as well as some vinyl tracks, decals, and instruction guide. Like all the models that we're going to be reviewing today, this one is also packed with insane amount of surface detail. It is just absolutely fantastic to see such fine detail on a 1/72nd scale model. Also, there is very good separation between the sprue trees and the parts themselves, and there is hardly if any flash on this particular model. The main 3 components that make up the tank are the tub, which is the chassis, then we have the cover, and of course the cupola. The tank doesn't have any interior design, but it does have lots and lots of surface detail goodies that you attach on it later on. The model itself doesn't have any specific features apart from a bored gun on the turret. And if you're wondering when this kit came out, it was in late 2009. The M1A2 is the newest version of the M1 family. All the wartime realities and experiences that the M1A1HA went through during the Gulf War were considered in the creation of the M1A2. This tank is a product of advanced technology in the age of electronic information systems. All hardware and software in the M1A2 is up to date, and the information transfer is digital with bus systems. The US Army will upgrade a total of 1,079 old M1 tanks to the M1A2 standard. In addition, the Army has 62 newly produced M1A2s. Apart from being very easy to assemble, it also has very few decals. The instruction manual is very simple and easy to read and follow. It has few pages with clear instructions that are easy to follow and understand. The only drawback to this manual is of course that it's black and white, so the paint scheme on the back of the manual is kind of not usable very much because it's only, well, shades of gray that you see, and the rest you'll have to kind of see from reference photos or rely on the box art. The second model on review is this Tiger 1 mid-production in 1/72nd scale, length 116.4 millimeters, width 50.6 millimeters. It has 81 parts and has 7 sprues. Like all the models in this review, this one is also 16 euros. Trumpeter initially released this model in 2006. However, a couple of months later, they made some new modification, and this is the result. So what were the modifications? Well, you can see that there are remnants of the old model in this model kit. If you take a look at the vinyl sprue, which contains the tracks and also some other additions for the cupola and the body. The main body of the tank is of course the tub, the cover, and the cupola. And this right here is the modified piece, where you can clearly see the ropes that are on top of the tank, which in previous versions were part of the vinyl sprue. The model itself doesn't have any specific features apart from the bored out gun and the two paint schemes. The first one being white camouflage in December of 1943, which is of course Russian theater of war, and the second one would be the 1944 version, of course again a Russian theater of war, fall. The Tiger I was one of the most heavily armed and armored tanks of World War II, and a formidable opponent of Allied tanks. The Tiger was essentially still at its prototype stage when it was first hurried into service, and therefore changes both small and large were made throughout the production run. Production of the Tiger I began in August 1942, and 1,355 were built by August 1944, when production ceased. Tiger was first used in action in September of 1942 near Leningrad. The decal sheet of paper is small, but the decals are nicely printed. The manual is a small A4 type black and white manual with few pages, but very clear and easy to follow instructions that don't feel rushed and are very well suited for a beginner. Also be aware of the modification to this version of the tank, where you don't need some vinyl pieces for this build, and those are clearly marked in the manual. The only drawback again to this one is that it's black and white, so the paint scheme on the back is a bit of a question mark. So again, you will have to rely on the box art or some reference photos. Overall, I think it's a very well made model that is suited for a beginner or someone who just wants to try out a new painting technique. Our third tank for today is the Russian T-80B main battle tank with a length of 280.2 mm, a width of 107.3 mm, and it has 40 pieces plus, which is the easiest one of the bunch. It is a 1/72 scale model and like all costs 16 euros here in Slovenia. The tank doesn't have any specific features apart from a bored out gun and two paint schemes. Well, the other feature is that you don't have to actually assemble the tracks and the running wheels because you just attach them to the body. That could be a feature. Well, anyway, the model does offer a lot of surface detail, very good surface detail that you just, well, you don't expect on a 72nd scale model, and that's true for all the parts. Parts are nicely laid out in the sprues, and their sprue attachment points are okay. There is not a lot of flash, and if there is, it's not hard to clean up. The T-80 is a main battle tank designed in the manufacture. Oh my god, no. The T-80 is the main battle tank designed and manufactured in the former Soviet Union. It started out as the T-64 and it entered service in 1976, and it was the first production tank to be equipped with a gas turbine engine for main propulsion. The T-80U was last produced in a factory in Omsk, Russia, while the T-80UD and further development of T-84 continue to be produced in Ukraine. The T-80 and its variants are in service in Belarus, Cyprus, Kazakhstan, Pakistan, Russia, and South Korea and Ukraine. The decal sheet of paper is a bit big for this one, but it's very plain with all just white numbers and some insignias, but that's basically it. So, not very difficult to attach to the tank. As for the instructions, like with all the Trumpeter models, very simplistic black and white manual A4 type with easy to follow instructions that do not feel rushed and are very methodically laid out. The only drawback to this manual is of course that it's black and white, so the paint schemes do not really jump at you when you look at them. Our fourth model on review is the German Tkfw 186 JadgTiger Porsche production. It is a 1/72nd scale model with a length of 145.6 millimeters, a width of 50.3 millimeters, and the height of 42.6 millimeters. Price €16. Trumpeter first released this model in 2008. However, a couple of months later, they did some modification to the model kit, and this was the result. Again, a very simple model to put together. It has a tub-like chassis with a top that is basically just two pieces, and a lot of surface detail. All the pieces are very well made, good attachment points, and not a lot of flash. This model doesn't have any specific features apart from a bored-out gun. The JadgTiger development started in February of 1943, and on October 20th, 1943, a wooden mock-up was presented to Adolf Hitler. JadgTiger's role was to support infantry and combat armored vehicles at long ranges. Two prototypes, one with the Porsche suspension, 8 wheels, and one with Henschel suspension, 9 wheels, were completed in February of 1944. The first designation was Jagdpanzer 6, but later on it was named the JadgTiger and received number SD-Kfz 186. Production was planned to start in December of 1943, but started in July of 1944 because of the Panther V production that received priority. This is the smallest decal sheet of all the models, and it just has a cross and some numbers, so really, well, they're okay, as you can see. The manual, again, is nicely printed, A4, black and white, not rushed, clearly laid out, very well thought out. That is very well suited for a beginner because it just eases you into the build process without giving you too much of a headache. The only drawback, again, it's a black and white manual, so the paint scheme doesn't really pop out on the back. But then again, it's a very simple paint scheme, so you won't be able to lose any sleep over it. The fifth model is the People's Liberation Army ZTZ-99A main battle tank. The model has the length of 125 millimeters, a width of 60 millimeters, and it has 40 plus parts. Is a 1/72nd scale model, and it cost, you guessed it, €16. The model doesn't offer any specific mind-blowing features apart from a bored-out gun and the tracks, which are basically made as one piece, where the drive wheels and the road wheels are basically made into one with the tracks. So you just attach them from either side and you're basically done. One of the more interesting aspects of this tank is, of course, its digital camouflage, which is really difficult to replicate if you're not using any sort of stencils or decals. So in this case, you don't really have decals, so you're basically left to your own ingenuity of how are you going to actually create this layered effect, which, if you are a newbie, is going to be really difficult to pull off. Even if you are an advanced modeler, it's going to be a challenge for you to paint this in such a fashion. One thing that I forgot to mention is the model number, and this is the model number 07171. It was released this year, so this is actually the newest of the bunch, and I think it's a very well made kit with lots of potential. Just like all the other models that we've reviewed so far, this one also has a nice separation between parts and sprue, and the sprue ends are nice and long, so you can come in with the snippers and clear out the parts. The decal sheet of paper is a bit boring for this one. We just have some letters and numbers and 2 stars for each side, and that's basically it. However, the instructions, just like all the other, are absolutely fantastic. A4 style paper with about 8 pages, which just glide you through the build process, simple and easy steps that don't confuse you and don't feel rushed or condensed or just, too overwhelming for a beginner. So it's going to be an enjoyable build. The most disappointing aspect of this manual is, of course, its black and white pages, especially when it comes to camouflage patterns, because it's basically just black and white, so a reference picture is going to be needed. For our 6th model on the review, we're taking a look at the Soviet T-28 medium tank riveted edition, with a total length of 140.1 millimeters, a width of 38.7 millimeters, and it has around 90 plus parts. It is a 1/72nd scale model with a price tag around €16 or less, model number 07151. Trumpeter initially released this model in 2018. However, a couple of months later, they came out with this version, which is a new parts version. The Soviet T-28 was among the world's first medium tanks. The prototype was completed in 1931 and the production began in late 1932. It was an infantry-supported tank intended to break through fortified defenses. The T-25 was designed to complement the heavier T-35, with which it shared many components. The T-28 would not have that much success in combat, but it played an important role as a development project for the Soviet designers. A series of new ideas and solutions were tied out to the T-28 and were later incorporated in future models. As for this particular model kit, it doesn't have any specific features apart from, again, a bored out hull and the tracks, which are at one with the wheels. The only real feature of this tank is that it doesn't actually have any decals because, as we heard, it was more of a prototype production thing, so no markings were actually needed. However, you can paint this model in two paint schemes, one being a winter camouflage and the other a summer camouflage, which is a little bit more graphic. The manual is a standard black and white A4 type manual with clear and easy to follow instructions. It is not rushed and is very well suited for a beginner. Trumpeter also has the knack of actually telling you just the name of the paint rather than the specific paint type to use, so it is very simple to follow and use any type of paint as long as it fits into the overall paint scheme. The last model on review is the Pz.Kpfw 8, or the Mouse. The length is 149.5 millimeters, width 51 millimeters, and it has 140 parts, which I don't really think it's accurate because if you just look at the pieces inside, it doesn't really feel that much. It's a very straightforward model to build. We have a tub light design for the bottom, we have a cover, and of course a turret, with all the other pieces basically just for gluing on top of it. One thing that I forgot to mention is the model number, which is 07446, and it was released in 2020. This model of all has the most insane texture detail on the surface, and you'll see when we zoom in. You can see the bare metal as it was on the original tank, and it's all fantastic. Later on I'll be switching to the more precise macro lens where you can just see all the imperfections in the plastic replicated to the letter. As I'm filming this, I have to remind myself that this is a 1/72nd scale model with details that you usually find on a 1/35th scale model, which is superb. The more unique features about this model are the bored out gun, of course the texture on the surface of the tank, of course the running tracks with wheels attached to it, and the two steel pins that come with the kit, which represent the axles for the front and the back running wheels, which also give a more hefty feel to the model once assembled fully. And just like the previous T-28 tank, this one also doesn't have any decals because it was more of a test ground for a potential tank in the making as opposed to a fighting vehicle on the front. This was a super heavy tank designed during World War II in Germany. It was equipped with a 128mm KWK-44 L55 gun and a coaxial 75mm KWK L36.5 auxiliary guns, and all vehicles are equipped with 240 to 60mm armor. This ultra heavy tank had a experimental electric drive system, but compared to the weight of the tank, which is 188 tons, it can only reach a maximum speed of 18 kilometers per hour. When it comes to the manual for this particular model kit, it is a very straightforward black and white A4 type manual with 8 pages that lead you through the build process with ease and comfort. It is a very well designed model kit for a beginner, and even the paint scheme is not going to cause too much problem even if you're painting it with a brush. A slight downside for this model is of course its black and white manual because the paint scheme is rather, well, black and white. Pretty neat, these tanks. Well, thanks for watching. If you have been, thank you for liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.